Good afternoon, everybody. I know some of you we all just ran over from the State of the County address, so thanks for being here. This is the Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy of Strategery Roundtable. I'm tired. For Wednesday, September 25th, 2024 at 2 p.m. And if you wish to address the committee during the public comment portion of the agenda, click on the reactions at the bottom center of your PC screen. Select the hand icon, click the icon to raise hand. Your digital hand will now be raised. Those addressing the committee must state their first and last name and agency for the record. Please turn on your microphone before speaking. Those of us here in the room. To facilitate electronic access, no person shall speak until recognized by the chair. So item 1 there, roll call, Denise.
City of Clovis.
Here.
City of Coalinga. City of Firebaugh. City of Fowler.
Here.
City of Fresno.
Here.
City of Huron. City of Kerman. City of Kingsburg.
Here.
City of Mendota. City of Orange Cove. City of Parlier. City of Reedley. City of San Joaquin.
Here.
City of Sanger. City of Selma.
Here.
County of Fresno.
Here.
San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution.
Present.
Fresno LAFCO.
Here.
Caltrans.
Here.
Fax.
Here.
City of Clovis Transit.
Here.
Fresno County Rural Transit.
Here.
PG&E. T-Mobile.
Thank you. Present. Here.
Hello, I can't hear anything. This is Michelle Lopez. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Is your microphone on? Okay.
It's on, yes. Okay, now I can hear you.
We're going to give her a different microphone.
Self-Help Enterprises. Okay, we got Fresno County EDC. Fresno Chamber of Commerce. West Suns Water District.
Here.
State Center Community College District. Citizens Oversight Committee. League of Women's Voters of Fresno.
Here.
Michelle Roman, Public at Large.
Here.
Paul Marquez, Public at Large.
Here.
Michelle Lopez, Public at Large.
Here.
And then I'm going to go back really quick. Inspiration Transportation. Thought we had somebody online. Okay.
that all of them? Okay, great. All right. Item 2, new information discussion items. Approved minutes of meeting for August 28th, 2024. Is there any member comment on the minutes? Any public comment on this item? Okay, I'm open for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Amy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, item B, the equity priority communities and disadvantaged communities definition approval.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Roundtable. So this item is about the environmental justice community definition for the regional transportation plan. As part of the RTP, there is also an environmental justice element, and this includes the environmental justice analysis. The analysis measures the distribution of benefits and burdens for the proposed strategies and transportation projects in the RTP, and ensures that they are distributed equitably. And the EJ definition feeds into this analysis by identifying those EJ communities. And the EJ subcommittee is a subcommittee of the Roundtable or the RTP. And we also have one representative serving on the Roundtable, and they have the role of reviewing that definition and approving the definition. And so the EJ subcommittee convened on July 10th for their first meeting. And during this meeting, staff presented the proposed strategy for defining EJ communities. And Cheech and Fan will be presenting into more detail on the definition. But essentially, we are proposing to conduct 2 analyses, one for disadvantaged communities and one for equity priority communities, both of which will be defined as environmental justice communities. And so this strategy was proposed at the first meeting of the EJ subcommittee, and at which time the subcommittee members had the opportunity to provide feedback on the proposed strategy. And we also provided a review period for the subcommittee members between that first meeting and before our second meeting, so until the end of August, to provide any input. And we did receive some comments and some recommendations for incorporating a few additional communities, which have been incorporated, and Cheech will be touching on that a little bit later. And so the subcommittee met again on September 18th last week and approved the proposed definition with the recommendation of incorporating 2 additional communities, which have been added. And I'll pass it on to Cheech, who will present on the EJ communities definition.
Thank you, Jennifer. So this time for the 2026 RTP, we propose to do 2 sets of the EJ analysis. So we have the drop the map here. If you wanted to see the interactive one, you can scan the QR code on the screen. One is for the community with the highest concentration of low income and minority group in our region. We use the term equity priority communities, which will contain about 1/3 of the county total population. And it's a relative concept based on the Fresno regional demographic data. And another EJ analysis will be used the disadvantaged community, which is based on not only the demographic data, but we're also counting the existing environmental pollution burden. We use the state and the federal definition of the disadvantaged community in our analysis, which will covers about 60% of the Fresno County. And first, for the equity priority community, we propose to use 4 demographic indicators. People of color, low income. These 2 are the federal required in the EJ analysis. And linguistic isolation and housing cost burden will serve as a supplement to the first 2 factors. We have this metric detail for each demographic factor on this table. And we did the research on the best practice from the federal agencies report and also other California MPO's example. We proposed a method to help us identify the equity priority community. We got the 4 metrics we just mentioned from the latest American Community Survey, which conducted by the Census Bureau. The geographic level will be census block group, and that's the finest level of the ACS data. Then we classify this four metrics based on their distribution related to the regional average. So each metrics were classified into 5 groups from the well below average to well above average, and then we convert to an index from 0 to 4. So higher index means there are higher concentration of a population group. And after we have the index of each demographic metrics, we use a formula to calculate a composite equity index, and it's basically a cumulative number which assigns language resolution and housing burden with lower weights, because people of color and low income, these two factors are the federal required factor. We want to keep these two, take the larger portion of the overall index. And with a county-wide index, we generate a map as shown at the bottom left. The darker colors means a higher index, equity index. And based on this map, we should suggest using the composite index above average as a criterion. And also considering the Fresno County have a region-wide high concentration of the minority, we also set a supplement criteria that includes area with low income index above average and people of color index at or above average, so that low income community with average level minority concentration also included in this list. Then we got the map of the proposed equity priority committee as shown in the right bottom. The equity priority committee area are marked in purple. It have a good coverage of the South Fresno city area, all the smaller cities, and the rural unincorporated community with high concentration of the low income or minority groups, such as Paola, Redden City, Riverdale. And residents in the proposed equity priority committee takes about 33% of the county total population. We prepared the interact online map for the EJ subcommittee members to review, and we also added the field community to that list based on the feedback received. And for the disadvantaged communities, there is a definition from the state and another from the federal. The state's SB 535 established the disadvantaged community concept, and COG EPA defined it is COG Human Scoring Tool, which considered environmental data and environmental hazards and socioeconomic and public health. And the federal definition is from the Justice 40, which defined by the CEGST, the mapping tool. So both this definition considered about 60% of the Fresno County as disadvantaged, and most area are overlaid. So we include both definition. Community identified by any of these two definitions will be considered as a disadvantage in our analysis. Yeah, and that's a slide I have, and we'll welcome to any questions. Okay.
I have one question.
Yep.
For the equity priority communities, what is the, or is there a percentage threshold for the limited income speaking households?
Go back to the slides. So there is not a threshold there. It's just based, we compare it to the Fresno County average, and it's like it's a relative numbers.
Yes, go ahead.
So when we consider equity priority communities, but it doesn't actually mean any of these communities will get money or projects funded, right? Because this doesn't carry through to any funding programs, but should it? should it carry through to some funding that COG administers?
So for the purposes of the RTP, we're mandated by federal and state law to evaluate the environmental justice communities within the county. But we have leeway in defining, what is that community for our county? So that is what the process that has been laid out before you today has led to. The analysis is going to be part of several efforts that we can incorporate into other grant opportunities, but that would be determined kind of through those processes. We have defined, this equity priority community that will be used for this analysis. If other grant programs or studies or plans want to incorporate this, they're more than happy to do so, but this wouldn't dictate any funding sources, no.
Could this board provide like a wish that it did? So for example, on like programming for SDBG and CMAC, it's not a factor. And Clovis and Fresno can always outvote the county and all the cities. So, and the county and the other cities are the ones that have more of this. So I'm just structurally, how do you get it to, if like, say, you wanted to carry it through, is there a way for that to even happen as a factor?
Yeah, Robert, that may be something you want to address, how it would be incorporated into the other program.
So that recommendation could come from the roundtable, for example, that it be carried forward. So I think what you're getting at is beyond the RTP, that the more narrowly defined equity priority communities kind of filter down into project selection, say at the FTIP level, right? When it comes to project delivery. And so that could be part of your recommendation that would go forward to the TTC, PAC, and board, and then they would have the choice of whether or not to approve that.
I think Shi-Chin also had a point he wanted to make.
Yeah, so in our RTP project scoring, the community located in the equity priority community, they will get 2 points, and the other area, the project in the disadvantaged community, they get 1 point. So that means the project benefit to the EPC, they will get a higher score in the RTP evaluation.
Right, but I want to make clear to this committee that doesn't matter what the score is in the RTP, it doesn't translate into money to deliver a project in any way. It doesn't filter down into getting something actually funded to be built. Just to clarify, that's, unless I'm wrong, contradict me if I'm wrong.
But it does prioritize that project to, in the preferred scenario,
Right.
the higher scored projects would make it into the constrained or, listing versus the unconstrained listing. So it does help get the project into like essentially the first phase of it getting money eventually. So it does, you're right that it doesn't guarantee that it'll get funding, but
It's quite distant.
it does put it into the pool of possible projects, but you're correct in that it doesn't guarantee that it would be funded.
Right. So it creates the priority order because you have a constrained list of projects where funding is identified based on historical revenues, right? That it's placed into that category as opposed to the unconstrained category, which I euphemistically refer to as the Sears wish list. I mean, we can include as many projects as we like in the RTP, but we're bound by fiscal constraint. So we can't go beyond in terms of what we assign to the fiscally constrained category. We have to maintain, some semblance of a revenue projection that has some basis in reality. And so the points that are assigned through the scenario building process and the scoring criteria do help determine which projects make it into the constrained versus the unconstrained.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is one of my favorite things I enjoy harping on. Yes, she's right. you make it into the constrained project list, but no way does this guarantee funding. And my favorite two samples, of course, would be funds that flow through, FCOG. That FCOG has to actually have some control over, the primary two being CMAC and STBG. And I've had this big conversation with Paul last month in that when the projects come in, when COG does a corporate projects, STBG and CMAC, and you form a scoring committee to evaluate those applications, you should have as a criteria, is your project on a constrained project list?
Right, and
Yeah.
we do. We do have that on both the CMAC and STBG applications, that there are points deducted if the project is not in the RTP.
Yeah, but it should be on a constrained project list, not just in the RTP, it should be a constrained project list. The problem is, and I was not convinced by Paul's response when I talked to him about this very topic last month, there are an awful lot of grant programs that do not go through COG. They go straight to Caltrans or federal DOT, and they do not ask that question. And the grant, the people who make the application can apply for anything they want, even a project that's on the unconstrained project list. They can ask for that project and they can get funded. And then, of course, once it's funded, it's put into the FTIP because it's funded.
That is true.
And therefore, even if it's on an unconstrained project list, once federal DOT funds it, you're forced to put it into the FTIP.
That is true.
So,
Yes.
it's nice that we go through this project election process, but there's a certain degree of unreality about it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I mean, and I can't dispute anything that you've just said. There are all kinds of, as you said, other grant programs that are not governed by the RTP process that are available, and there tend to be more that pop up that as transportation bills become reality. We saw several new grant programs that were created out of the bipartisan infrastructure law, for example, that their inclusion in the RTP is certainly preferable, and we can place an emphasis on those if they flow through the COG. But as you point out, not all of them do. That is correct.
Any other questions?
I had a
Let's see.
question. As it relates to low income, what does that translate into per capita income? I mean, what is less than 200% federal poverty level? What is the number?
Yeah. So for the low income, we use the poverty rate, the poverty percentage. So the federal, they have each year they have a standard of the income of the poverty line, and some area will use a percentage of population or households below exactly the poverty line, or below the 150% of the poverty line, or even higher the 200% of the poverty line. Consider it's a federal standard, and California, our cost is much higher than the rest place. So here we use 200% of the poverty line as a standard.
I think to the question, I think what you're asking is what would be a dollar amount. So for example, Shichan, a family of four, isn't the federal poverty line somewhere around $48,000 for a family of four or something like that?
Yes, but it's the poverty line is different for the different size of the family.
Right.
So there is no fixed number here. So in the census data, they already converted it to the percentage. We directly use the percentage population below that income thresholds from the census data set.
Because it depends on how many are in the household.
Yes.
Any other questions?
One other question, the Justice 40.
Mhm.
What is the definition of Justice 40? You alluded to it. I think it'd be helpful to know.
Okay, yeah. Let me go to the slides. So the Justice 40 is a federal requirement actually. It's a federal government goal that 40% of the overall benefits of the federal investments flow to the disadvantaged communities. So for define the disadvantaged communities, there is many kinds of data, is including both income and um, pollution burden, economy, climate risk. So they publish a mapping tool. It's called the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool. So everybody can visit that, and they have a standard compared to the federal wide standards, and they have listed their disadvantaged community identified.
So going back to Nick and what he was asking, 40 cents of every dollar when you apply for federal funds must go to.
Yes. So to ensure that after define our EJ area in the final RTP, we have a service scenario developed, and for the final draft, we'll have a EJ summary to list how many funding is going to the EJ area, and it will list the investment by project type. So you can find the summary there, how many bike and paths fundings is served the EJ area, and how many transits funding is going to the EJ area. Yeah, so that we will present that in the following in next roundtable meeting. We'll have many other metrics related to our scenario.
Another question to further define the equity priority communities. So all of this is as in the criteria is needed to hit in order to be considered within the equity priority community. So these standards, all of them need to be checked off within the boundaries of Fresno County or a specific census.
Yes, that's correct, right? What you're saying is every one of those criteria have to be met in order to be into the EPC? That's the question?
Correct.
Yeah.
And the boundary is Fresno County?
Yeah, and the boundary is Fresno County.
Yes, it's based on all census block group within Fresno County.
Thank you.
And I did want to correct myself from earlier. I just looked it up. So in 2024, the federal poverty level for a household of four, 31,200. So 200%, 62,800
So that's what that translates into.
for the low income definition.
Yeah.
Yeah, 62,800, almost $63,000. Anything below $63,000 would be considered low income for a household of four. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So would there be support for a motion to move that the COG funding that goes through COG allocate some points in their programs toward equity priority communities? Is there support or against that?
Say that again.
That I would be proposing that this board recommend that, or the roundtable recommend that when COG has funding programs that flow through them, that they would start allocating some points towards equity priority communities.
Well, to be clear, that is already in the proposal.
No,
The-
on the, no, in the competitive actual funding, like CMAC, STBG.
Okay, but that would be outside of this particular action item.
Oh, okay.
Just to be
But-
clear that, I mean, you can do that, but
Yeah.
that would be outside of this particular action
So,
item.
okay, would that be, okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense? I mean, in
Yes,
other words, you
yes.
can do that,
Mhm.
you can do that, but it doesn't affect this particular action item.
No, I get that. Okay.
Yeah.
And to clarify, you would want to recommend to, I mean, this body doesn't have like jurisdiction over
No,
the
no, it
grant
doesn't.
programs, but it'd be a recommendation
Like a
towards.
soft ask.
Yeah, okay.
Like
I just want to
a-
clarify what it is.
Just
Okay.
like this is what we think would be good, but only if other people obviously agree. That's me. Maybe you all disagree. I'm just kind of was wondering if that's something in direction or if there's no support for it or if there is support for it.
I guess maybe it would be good to hear if there'd be anybody opposed to that. It's going to be tough to have a roll call vote on maybe that specific recommendation, but if there's anybody that has issues with that recommendation towards the grant programs, maybe it would be good to hear.
Yeah, is there anybody opposed to that? Maybe that's probably an easier way to ask, huh? If there's anybody opposed.
I'm not opposed, but I had a clarification question on what's in the current scoring criteria as far as if the project is listed in the RTP or not listed in the RTP. We mentioned that they get minus points. Does that make a distinction between constrained and unconstrained projects?
At this time, it does not. That is true. Nick is correct about that. It does not specify whether it's because as long as it is listed, it qualifies for federal funding.
Yeah.
That's the issue, is that we ask that the jurisdictions include everything that they possibly can think of. All projects be in the RTP that are going to be, could potentially be eligible for federal funding.
Right. Got it. Thank you.
Is there anybody from the public have any questions on this one as well? Does anybody online have any questions we may have missed since the screen's still up? Denise, was there anybody online? Okay. All right, so I'll bring it back to members. So this is, I am open for a motion on this. If anybody wants to include anything or leave as is.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead. Is your microphone on? I'm sorry. Is your microphone?
It's on.
Okay, speak a little closer to it so everyone can hear. Good. Make the motion.
Make
approve
a
it.
motion, yes.
To approve. Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Ryan Burnett, City of Clovis.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, item C, activity-based model introduction overview. Santosh?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, members of the RTP Roundtable. My name is Santosh Patrai. I'm a senior regional planner and transportation modeler here at Fresno COG. I'll be giving you all the brief overview of our transportation model, which is called the activity-based model. This will act as a primer to our SCS scenarios that will be presented in the next month's meeting. So before jumping into our own activity-based model, let me just briefly give you a definition of what the travel demand model is. So it is a systematic framework. It is actually an analysis tool that provides the systematic framework for representing how the travel demand changes in response to the different input assumption. So that is done through the simulation of the daily activity pattern in response to a typical land use and transportation system. Now, this will allow the modelers or planners to test, alternative land use and transportation policies or strategies against the future growth. This slide shows the working process of the travel demand model. I will be saying it, in short as a TDM going forward, which represents the travel demand model. And so any travel demand model starts with the calibration of the base year. So we will collect the data set. We will decide which base year we want to calibrate and validate the model to. And then once we have a good working setup of that particular year's the travel demand model, we will move forward with the forecasting process. So, during the calibration process, we gather a lot of data sources like traffic counts, household surveys, local counts, the census data, NSDS, which is also one of the household travel surveys. So once we have a good validated model against those observed data set, it kind of provides a reliability for us to actually forecast for the future years. And because that is needed to test the multiple scenarios, which will be done in the SCS process. We will envision different scenarios, and in that process, we will be using this transportation model to forecast how it will behave or how it will, work in the future. So why we are discussing about the travel demand model or the traffic modeling? Because it is one of the core, or it is the core process of the SCS or the RTP as a whole, because RTP is a long range, typically 25 years transportation plan that consists of multiple uses, roads, transit, active transportation mode like bike and ped, different micromobilities like scooters, e-bikes, etc. And those all can be modeled into this travel demand tool, which will give us how it will present, or how it will react to the futures we provide. And RTP is a vision for the future that requires the travel forecasting. And for the travel forecasting, we need the travel demand model. Now, Fresno has a model called activity-based model, which is in short ABM, and it is the most advanced travel demand model we have in the transportation world. Now, definitely, it is an evolving process. So things have changed a little because they continuously improve and change the process or the module within the activity-based model. But this is as a whole, this is the latest model, and this is different from the traditional model in the sense that it is a tour-based model. That means it tracks the activity of an individual for a typical day over the whole 24 hours period, and that kind of tracks the activity of a person where he or she goes or makes the first trip of the day, and then if there is intermediate trips in between, and come back to home, maybe stop in between for a grocery or a pickup. So that all is tracked by this activity-based model, and that provides an advantage for this model to capture every person's activity more accurately. And if we change any kind of an input inside the model, that will be reflected in each person's activity. That's why it makes the model so sensitive compared to the traditional model. In the traditional model, it would just capture the particular area and do the forecasting rather than going into the individual or the household level analysis. Now, we had used the Fresno ABM in our last RTP SCS as well, but this round, what is new? Because it has some new capabilities we made in the recent round of update. It completed just a couple of months ago. It is now more sensitive to the transportation and the transit modules. it has more data set. It was validated, it was calibrated and validated against the latest data set we could find out. And there are few evolving strategies, policies in the transportation sector. For example, telecommuting, managed lanes. Managed lanes involve, HOV or the high occupancy tolls, any kind of lanes, related strategy. There is a transportation network companies, Uber, Lyft, and our city of Fresno is also working on the concept of the truck restriction in certain areas of our county or city. So these are all evolving process that was not present in our last round of ABM, and this is the new things that has been incorporated into this round of ABM. Last year's ABM was updated to 2014. Now it has been moved to 2019. That was the most reliable data set we could get before the pandemic, because we don't really want to go into the pandemic level data set. Those are really skewed. Now this provides the brief structure of our activity-based model. So there are basically 3 submodels within the ABM. The first one is called the resident travel or the DSIM. So this is the main model within our ABM. It captures all the internal travel within the Fresno County, basically by the autos. So any kind of a travel done by the light duty vehicle or the autos within the boundary of the Fresno County is captured in this submodel. The second is the truck travel. So basically, Fresno County being agriculture county, having a lot of warehouses and agriculture related trips, we definitely could not leave the truck travel. So truck travel is a separate model that captures the trucks travel within our county, that makes a trip within our county, and then adds those trips or VMT on top of the resident travel. The last one is the auxiliary travel or the interregional travel. It basically captures those trips that either originates or terminates inside the Fresno County. So it can be made within the Fresno County, but ending outside the county, like Madera or the Tulare, and vice versa. It also captures those trips that are passing through the Fresno County. So if we see the I-5, then there are a lot of those kind of trips that are traveling between north and south and just passing the Fresno County. So the model, the ABM, is comprised of these 3 major submodels that calculates each kind of a trip types and then spits out the result. I just wanted to provide a snapshot of how the modeling of the future looks like. This is, the highlighted region shows the new future growth areas where there can be a residential or the commercial development, and those are connected. Those should be connected to the existing transportation system. So they are connected by the local roads or the neighborhood roads, and that's how those trips come into the main transportation network and comes into the analysis. Now, obviously, once those trips are captured, we need to analyze what their mode choice is, and what actual link or the network, assignment, or where exactly they are traveling from and to, and which route they are taking. So that is called the network assignment or the route assignment. The last portion of this, the activity-based model, consists of the validation. Basically, in the working process, I showed it in together with the calibration, but I wanted to present more information on how the validation is done. So, once we have the model, once we have the observed data set, we take about 3/4 or about that proportion of the data set, which is called the training data set. they are used in calibrating the model. Now, 25% of those remaining data set is kept for the validation purpose at the end of the model. So our model is validated against the traffic counts collected by Caltrans and Fresno COG, along with local jurisdiction also do some kind of a traffic counts. And then we also do the validation for the VMT, which is called the vehicle miles travel, that is captured by Highway Performance Management System. It's a federal, platform for the VMT, and they report the VMT within each county, and that's what we calibrate it to. Now we do have the transit ridership information from 3 transit providers in our region, and we collect those data set and then compare what the model is giving us compared to what the reality or what the ground observation is. Once we verify those all validation number or the difference is within the accepted range set by the state or the air resource board, then we move ahead with this model. Along with the validation, we also do the sensitivity test. Sensitivity test is done to assess the model sensitivity to the different changing inputs like fuel prices, transit fares, any kind of land uses like residential, commercial, and we basically gauge what the difference is for these different sets of inputs. And there are some research studies being done and suggested your elasticity should be within this range for this kind of a changes. So we verify that our results are within that range. For this particular round of update, we did 12 sets of tests as a part of the sensitivity test. Now, yes, the ABM is an amazing tool, but it is not a magic stick that can do everything. There are some limitations. We can only capture those projects or the strategies that can be coded in the network. There are other concepts or the strategies which cannot be modeled, and those will be handled outside the model, and those are called the off-model strategies. Now, I just wanted to provide you an overview of how we calculate the GHG reduction at the end of this RTP SCS process, and that's where this thing comes in. So if we can model anything within the model, then the VMT and the GHG is calculated inside the model. If we cannot model it within our ABM, then we will have to rely on a different methodology to calculate how much VMT reduction or the GHG credit we are getting for all of those off-model strategies. So for example, carpool, vanpool, electric vehicle infrastructure, autonomous vehicle, an intelligent transportation system, or the signal coordination. These are all the things that we cannot model inside the ABM yet. There might be a process or it might be possible in the future, but as of now, we will have to take care of those strategies outside the model. And that's how we calculate the GHG reduction on the VMT performance for each of the scenarios we will be presenting in the next RTP, next roundtable meeting. And we will be comparing those 3 scenarios, or how many scenarios we will have. And then we will compare, which scenarios is performing best. So this is the framework in which those 3 scenarios will be compared. And this will be common for all the scenarios. So that's all I have in the activity-based model, and I would be happy to. Of course, I didn't want to overwhelm you all with all the technical details, right? So that's why I tried keeping it in the high level, but I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Thank you, Santosh. I was curious, what data sources are used for those traffic counts? Is it different data sources, or is there standard, or is it continuous or sampled, or how do you get all that information?
Right. So Caltrans collects the traffic counts on the state highways, and they have their own system on, how they collect the data set. Of course, that won't be 100% of the sample. That will be a sample, but they will do some, projection, or they will try to expand the observed samples, and then we take those traffic counts to do this validation. Now, those cover the state highways, but we also want to do the validation in the local streets and the arteries, and that's where we have to go with the local counts. Fresno COG has some traffic counters. We work with county, and we collect the data from city of Clovis and Fresno, and we try to have all those available data set, so that we can calibrate. Sometimes we would have to tap into the other big data sources. And those are very common in the transportation sector. They are called street lights or replica. Sometimes we would have to tap into those kind of data sources as well if we do not have enough data sources. Yeah. Sure.
Anybody else? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for making that as simple as we could understand. The question I had was with regards to non-motorized type of travel. How's that taken into account? Because, in this.
So we do have the bike links or the bike trails that are coded in our transportation network. So when we go into the individual, then we would track that person's activity. If he or she makes any kind of biking or pedestrian related activities throughout their day. Now, biking, definitely we can model that in our network, and that can be analyzed within the model. For the pedestrian, there is a different module that would capture the estimated. They won't be seen in our transportation network, but they will be captured as a part of what the observed data set is, and then with that calibrate that in the model so that we assign us percentage or the share of that mode to the pedestrian. So that's how it is captured in the model. We kind of base that on the observed data set.
Yeah, thanks. I know it's important with some of the funding sources out there. And it'd be good to have not only the counts, but how that, projects outwards.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And Santos, just to be clear, I believe that there are also traffic counters for that are used on some bike paths.
Yeah.
Well, right.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's another data source.
Yeah.
That's available. What about and then can you also explain how we capture transit trips?
Transit trips?
Yeah.
Sure. So each of the transit agencies collect the ridership data set. They have some kind of counters, APC. We have some transit representative here, but they have different system of collecting that data set. And we simply request for those data set, for a typical day or a typical month of the year. And then we feed those numbers into the calibration step and then compare that model performance or the model output later on to that collected data set. So yeah, the transit agencies are the sources of those data set.
For the ABM limitations, you said that there's on model and off model. How would you guys be, or do you have any examples of what models you guys will be using for those categories that are qualified as off models?
Yes. So we work with the state. The major organization is the California Air Resource Board. ARB has set some guidelines and methodologies for capturing those off-model strategies. So we do have a spreadsheet tool that will give us, certain, credit for those off-model strategies. So we'll have to quantify we'll have to make a good estimate of how much work or how much you know how much improvement we can get from that particular strategy, and then we will input that into that spreadsheet tool, and that will calculate it. So that is not something that we can actually work on ourselves and present it to the state DOT or the CARB. They would have to set up the methodology, and they decide like how much credit should be given to this off-model strategy. Obviously, they are very strict on that one, and they are very conservative on that part of the analysis. They would let you take only a very bare minimum that is practical or that is possible to achieve.
So some examples of off-model strategies would include electric vehicle, percentage of the fleet that's electric vehicles. I can't remember for example, fluctuation in gas prices. Is that an example?
So fluctuation of the gas prices will be handled within the model. Yeah, that goes as a standard.
So what are some other examples of off-model strategies?
So off-model, as I showed, so carpool and vanpool that have to be captured through the off-model strategies. We'll have to work with, we do have the carpool, vanpool from the FCTA. There's a program, and we will collect the data set, how many people are using that strategy, and how many people are reporting they are using that kind of services. So based on that, they will make a very conservative analysis, like, rather than 1 people driving a car, 5 people are driving in the same van, then, we are saving like 4 people's commute. But yeah, they would, and most of the time we would have to work with CARB to set those kind of credit, because it might vary from region to region. Fresno County may not react similarly as the Bay Area in some of the off-model strategies, and vice versa. So it depends on the region where you are applying those off-model strategies. Yeah.
So I was at a seminar where some traffic engineers said that autonomous vehicles will reduce congestion by 300%. So
they said increases the congestion.
Reduce congestion by 300%. And they said that should be included in these type of plans. I don't have the specific study, but I'm just wondering, is that something you're considering, or do you have a different statistic or anything like that we might be including? And so that basically they're saying you don't need to widen roads in 20, 30 years. You shouldn't be widening roads. You don't need to. I'm not saying that's true.
I'm in a meeting.
Yeah.
And then I have a meeting at 3:30. So after 4.
So I'm not saying asserting the facts of that, but it was 2 traffic engineers, and I'm saying that that's what's being said.
That's a good point, Erin, and that is definitely one of the most latest strategy, or the evolving transportation policy, or this is the innovation that has been done in the transportation. Now, we do not have a lot of research on this topic yet. We did not use this strategy in our last RTP SCS, and we are, the CARB has requested COG to consider this off-model strategy, if we can. Now, Fresno COG, not ideal place for this autonomous vehicle, obviously, compared to some other big cities of the state. But definitely, since we are looking 25 years ahead, who knows, there might be a good, autonomous share in the market. As a planner, I'm not sure it actually reduces by, or it can reduce up to 300%. What if people who are old and who can't drive, and they are seeking the carpool, vanpool, or they are seeking the shared ride with some other people. If there is an autonomous vehicle where they don't have to drive, they will start making a lot of trips, which are not being at the moment. We can think in that way as well. So it might actually, trade off with what it can reduce, or even take the total trips or the VMT higher. If I don't have to drive and I can do my things, I can watch football highlights, in the car. Then yeah, I can make some other recreational social trips that I would not have made if I have just stayed at home and watched football highlights. So this is so new, and we do not have much study yet. Obviously, we'll see how much progress is being done on this strategy going forward.
Anyone else? Okay. Anyone online? Or any comments, public? Okay, this was informational only, but I know, Robert, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, I just going back before we move on to the next item very quickly, going back to the last agenda item, I do have project delivery staff looking over my shoulder and shaking their fingers at me, because it turns out that it is in the CMAQ and STBG guidelines that the requirement for a point reduction in STBG, in the STBG and the CMAQ applications, if a project is not in the RTP, turns out that it does specify that it has to be on the constrained list. That was not my understanding, but according to our project delivery staff, that is already in the guidelines and in the application, that it must be on the constrained list in order to avoid a deduction of points. So I apologize for that omission.
Okay. Moving on to item D, the RTP Transportation Project Suggestion Survey. Brenda.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. This is just a reminder that the survey is up and running and posted in many different places. So far, we've had it up officially a week, and these numbers are lower. I just looked at them on my phone, and they're up about 12 participants since this morning. I'm getting a little addicted to checking the numbers. I wake up in the morning and see what happened overnight. But we're up, about to 3,500 views, 209 participants. I think, I'm assuming a lot of people go into it, see what it's about. Oh, interesting. Okay. I'll have to think if I have a suggestion, and then maybe coming back. We have 154 project suggestions. The other comments relate to some of the other questions we ask. We've incorporated questions that will feed into our climate resiliency study regarding floods and the transportation access through major hazards like wildfires and floods and landslides and extreme heat. And then the subscriber list is people who said, yes, I want to stay in touch on this. I want to know more. I want to see the map that you're going to put out of all the projects at the end, so we can continue to communicate with people, which will feed into more of the SES and other outreach processes as well. Again, just a reminder that, sorry, this is small. It's really big on my computer. It is open through October 31st. So we have more than a whole month to go. We do have all of the different versions up. English, Spanish, Hmong, and Punjabi are ready to go in online version and text version. Again, you can text respond to the survey, no cost to you. These are all the keywords. We had to use English keywords and we couldn't use the Punjabi alphabet. Unfortunately, there are some limitations to our system, but this is the first time we've tried doing the text. So I have gotten some responses via text. I've gotten some voicemails and some emails so far. So I'm really glad to see that people are taking advantage of all of the different options. The printed copies of the survey are available online, also on Plan Fresno under the public participation tab, or if somebody wants to take some printed copies out to a neighborhood meeting, or something that you're already going to, we would be happy to supply flyers and surveys. And then we can just take the hard copies back and we can input their responses into the system ourselves through a kiosk function. And so if I want to remind everyone, if you have events, maybe we can attend, or you have a club that you think maybe we could speak to, or you would like to share information. If you are within a community that has an event coming up, we would love to know about that. And then please share our flyers, our emails, our social posts with your contacts. That's one of the reasons that we want you here. We want to reach the people that you're representing. And so if you have questions about that or need something specific, please let me know. I'd be happy to get you anything you need on that. These are just some of the events that we ourselves at COG are attending, where we're talking about the RTP and some other things that we're doing. We were at the Women's Conference, the Harvest Festival, and the Kingsburg Crayfish Festival already. Our staff's at the Fresno State Employee Health Fair right now. And then we had some stuff lined up already to talk about Valley Rides and our Measure C program. So we're including this in. We'll be at Clovis Fest all weekend. You can see me there. You can see even Robert's going to be there. A lot of our staff. Yeah, Santosh is going to be there. Shichun's going to be there. So we would love you to come by our booth and say hello. Maybe fill out a survey there. I don't know. Take flyers with you. I'm working on a drawing for people who submit surveys. And I wanted to make sure we can do that as a government agency, and we can. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun event. And then we'll be at the big Fresno Fair Senior Day on the 7th. And some of our mini grants are doing a lot of other events. They're covering other days of the fair. And then we've got these other things going on throughout the communities. Reed Lee will be out there 2 days. Singers Trick or Treat. And so we are looking for the Selma Senior Center. So we're looking for more locations around the valley, particularly if there's anything in Mendota, Firebaugh, Huron. We definitely want to make sure we get that covered, or if groups would just share out within those communities. So I'll probably continue to bug you about that. But it's important. And then again, there's 20 plus additional events or promotional opportunities, presentations that are happening through our mini grants. And staff will be going out to the presentations, but there's a lot happening. I just sent another social media post out this morning. And so we'll be pushing. Our ad buys went out mostly over social media, like the Fresno Bee, some banner ads and things like that. So hopefully you'll start seeing it. If you wouldn't mind screenshotting and sending it to me. Mid-Valley Times ran an article yesterday that covered 3 communities, and they sent me a big list of questions that I answered for them. And so we're looking for opportunities like that across the board. So if you know of anything, please let me know. And again, there's flyers here if you want to take some. We also have more in the back, and we have surveys printed in English and Spanish so far. But does anybody have any questions about it?
Hi, Brenda. Thank you. How many do you have? Do you recall offhand how many submissions you got last time around, just for comparison?
I think it was about 1,200 project ideas.
Got a ways to go.
Well, it's been a week, so I think if we can keep the momentum up,
I have 2 comments. One, trying to get it posted in the county areas where the public is like waiting. Is there any way to get it at the DMV where they're trapped?
You can buy an ad. We have our Valley Rides messages on their screens. And I just suggested that they add a QR code, which they were like, yeah, that's a good idea. So we could do that. We could purchase something through their system if they can process it fast enough to get it on screen.
They have nothing else
in
to
some
do.
of them. No, it's a great idea.
They're there for 2 hours. They might actually do it. And they
Yeah.
might actually.
And they
want-
would have a transportation need likely if they're there. So, yeah.
And my other comment is there's, I'm trying to get the flyers out at different county events, too. And, awesome. And did everyone in this room fill out the survey? Cause that's not that many responses. I did.
Thank you.
So, and if I fill it out multiple times, would you be able to tell?
You can fill it out. You can't do multiple times from the same computer. If
So-
you go back in, it'll say, oh, you've already answered this question. Do you want to change your answer? But you can go back in and keep adding, it's my understanding, keep adding projects. So you don't have to wait until you've got your list. You can go in now, answer the questions, submit the projects, and then go back in later and continue to submit them. So I did just a little, I got a question about, I can't see the ones I've submitted. It's because I turned off the ability for other people to see everything that's submitted and comment, because people sometimes are unkind. And I want people to feel comfortable with submitting these. I also want to know if there's 20 people who find that a particular intersection, let's say, is a safety hazard and they need something there, or 30 people want a bikeway here. If oftentimes if someone goes in, I saw this last time, and they see that someone's already input that project, they won't input that project. So we don't know that there's a higher demand or request for something like that. And so I thought it would be helpful if they just kept to themselves. Any other questions? Questions from? No?
Okay, that's good. Thanks, Brenda. Okay. And item 3, look at this, we're almost done here, guys. 3A, items from staff. Any other things? The next meeting, mark your calendars for October 23rd, 2024 and November 20th. So next month, I just had this at my earlier meeting today. So October has 5 Wednesdays. So we have it's a crazy month next month. So make sure you're looking at October 23rd for our next meeting, and then already marked down November 20th for our November meeting. Any other items from staff though, Paul?
Yeah, just real quick. Santosh and I, over the next month or two, will start formulating the SES subcommittee, which will be a subcommittee that will advise the roundtable on our SES scenario development. As Santosh alluded to in his modeling update item, that's going to be an integral part of the development of the RTP. And so I've gotten a few people that have already requested to be on that subcommittee. Please let me know, or any of the staff know, if you'd like to participate in the SES subcommittee. We'll make sure you get invited. I anticipate that subcommittee will start later in the fall, probably in either November or early December, and it'll meet throughout 2025. And so at our next meeting in October, I'll be doing kind of an overview of scenario development and giving a preview of kind of the initial staff recommendation for scenarios. But over the next course of the next year, that will be refined. And so what we're going to be presenting next month will just be a preliminary kind of overview. And then the subcommittee and the roundtable itself will be advising on those scenarios moving forward. So I just want to let folks know to please let me know, or anybody on the staff know, if you'd like to participate on the SES subcommittee.
Great, thank you. Item B, items from members. Any member have anything they'd like to add? Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Next, item 4, public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the roundtable on items within its jurisdiction.
Yeah,
Not
she
the
sent
agenda.
me a link.
Note, prior to action by the roundtable on any item on the agenda, the public may comment on that item, and scheduled comments may be limited to 3 minutes. Is there anybody here for public comment? I'm smiling at you, Moses. No, okay. I don't see any public comment, so at this time we'll adjourn. Thank you.